Hello,
We
chat.
show. Hello, hello. I love that you say hello, chat. Then I know that you press the buttons and we're live. That's really
Yep.
cool. This is our thing now. I like it. Hello, everyone. Hello, Friday Blue. How are you? See, Greg's on typing away. He'll be on in a little bit. That's awesome. All right. So we are here with our Abandon launch. It's number 4 in the Legion of Dorks Presents. We're very excited. Oh, you have the other covers up there. That's awesome, Zafo. Nicely done. Nicely done. All these covers were done by Lisa Vasquez. She's incredible, very talented. She's a writer and a publisher herself right here in Houston. So we have her do these covers, and she gives us a killer deal because it is for charity. So thank you, everyone, for coming and supporting us. You should all know me. I am Kelly Lynn Colby, editorial director at Cursed Dragon Ship Publishing. And my job has gotten so ridiculously difficult that I was actually able to put this together only because of one person, and that was Leslie Bridgewater. Say hi, Leslie.
Hi.
Hi. She says, I want to be the editor so I don't have to be on camera. And I said, oh, you're going to be on camera. And she says, never mind, I quit. Haha, she's here. Isn't that great? How are you feeling this evening, Leslie?
Well, I am here, just like you said.
That's right.
Had a little wine with dinner. I'll be okay. So, yes, very excited to be here. Great opportunity. Thank you again, Kelly, for bringing me on board to work on this anthology, which was, wow, a ton of work, but a bunch of fun. So.
Yeah, I have to say, I met Leslie at Superstars Writing Seminar. You know, we've talked about it a lot on here. So I met her, and she was like, yes, you know, if you need some help, if, you know, I'm looking for experience. And then, you know, we had this anthology coming. It was already looking for authors, right? We were already out there submitting. And I was like, you know what? I have a great thing for you to do. How much do you really want to do this? And she was like, I don't know. What was your first thought, Leslie, when I was like, how about reading all the stories? What was your first thought?
My first thought was like, really? She said, yes. Wow. Okay. This is awesome, you know? So my next thought was, you know, okay, we'll read a few stories. Over 200 later. Okay. But it was all, wow. Yeah. You want to get experience, then that is certainly the way to go. As Kelly's always said, actually doing it gives you the best experience. You can train and you can read and you can go to classes and you can do all those other things, but until you finally get down and dirty and start reading, an anthology is really great because you're reading such a variety of authors and voices and genres, and especially with your anthologies, which cover cursed dragons and ships. So, you know, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, a lot of fun, a lot of work, learned a ton. And it's like, you know, really fast.
Awesome. Trial by fire hose.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, hold on, Leslie. First, I want to say thank you so much for DH Dunn, who just rated the channel. Yay! Hey, Dave, and hello, all these wonderful Dave people watching him survive in the cold. He streams a game, and he is in the anthology, so he's going to be on later. We'll get to talk to him. But I do want to welcome you all on board. We are launching Abandoned, an anthology of vacant spaces. It's the fourth book in Legion of Dork Presents, and it is for charity. So 50% of all proceeds go to charity until the production of the book is paid for. And once that's paid for, all of it will go to charity. So that's our goal. We need to pay for the book so everything can go to charity. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, please put them in chat. And we're going to go back to Miss Leslie, because after all that work and reading all of those stories, and I have to say, I've been doing this a little bit longer, and Jessica Guernsey's on later. She can vouch for me. She's been doing it longer than I have. That when you first start, you were like very generous with the stories.
Right.
You were saying yes to a whole lot of them.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And so what was the point where you decided that you could be a little more picky about which ones you were saying yes to?
Oh, wow. I have to kind of go back in time here, because some of them you know, some were, I don't know, how do you say it? Yes, because when you're just like I was, just kind of getting my feet wet and kind of getting a feel for, you know, some of them, it's like, it's pretty good, you know, but some stories you just knew right away. It's like, yeah, this is not. I guess I'll even back up further. One of the things that really helped me is reading the anthology from before, the Misspelled that you did prior to this. So I had an idea of what you were looking for, because my taste and your taste might not be exactly the same, but so I'm kind of looking for the types of stories you're looking for at the same time, being able to, So yeah, after a while, after about, 50 stories or so. I mean, when I realized it's like, well, I don't need to be reading this much. I've either lost interest or it's not, there's like, I mean, the info drop is huge or it's just, there are certain things that you realize it's like, this is just not gonna work. So, and then the other thing that you realize is that as your anthology starts to take shape and you start, the stories that are catching your eye, and of course us talking, and working out, it's like, because there are things that I read that's like, this is a really good story, but is this something that you would, because I'm not a horror girl, really, I'm a happy ending kind of gal. So it's not always.
Horror can have happy endings.
Well, that's true. It can. You just have to go through a lot to get there. But
relatively happy.
Relatively happy, right? So, but you do kind of, yes, after a while you can say, it just takes even sometimes a couple of paragraphs, sometimes a couple of pages, but then you catch that story that carries you all the way through and you're totally engaged and you're like, oh, this is definitely, yes, yes. So I think for me though, what did I narrow it down to? 50 out of 200 and, well, we'll say 250, I think the maybe pile got to be 50. And then the yes pile, I can't even remember, but then you narrow it down from there. So.
I will say the yes pile was big enough. We didn't have to look at the maybes.
Right. But it was good for me to do that.
I looked at all the yeses because here's the thing, ready? We only wanted 12 stories, but some of them were so good. We ended up with 15. I mean, we just couldn't say no to some of them. So it was just like, it was obviously we couldn't say no to 15 of them. We couldn't even get rid of 3 more. So yeah,
but when you get down to those, I mean, there really is discussion there, and you're really like, so, and so, and I see other authors, I've seen author chats and stuff like that. It's like it does not always about how good your story is, but does it necessarily fit with what we're looking for, and does it, so I love it when you tell authors like, turn this around and send it to somebody else because this is so good, it just doesn't work with us, but somebody else will use it, that kind of thing. So.
Or sometimes 2 stories are like similar.
Yeah.
And then we just have to decide which one do we love just a little bit more.
Right.
So that happens as well. But it's all a learning curve. So question, now that you have done this and you've gone in and you've gone through all of these stories, you've put it together. We worked through the cover together, deciding on the art, like you've done the whole thing beginning to end. The only thing you did not do was the formatting. Because I use Vellum and you didn't have a Mac. So everyone knows that's the only reason. Like Leslie, my name might be on the cover too, but Leslie did most of this work. So this was your first time working one-on-one with short story authors, right? Like editing for them. What was that experience like?
Well, I have to say I was a little apprehensive at first, because it's like, here's these authors, right? They know what they're doing. And it's like, but so you do it though. I mean, and your guidance was great. It's not my story, it's theirs. You're making suggestions, just telling what you've seen, and of course you looked at everything I did before it, happened to go out. So, but it was really great. Everybody was pretty open. And, if they didn't agree with something, they let me know what it was. And, so that too was a real learning experience, because sometimes I know in one story, there was an author, she had done something and I had marked it, being a good editor and looking at the CMOS guide. Right. But she's like, I was going for this. And I was like, oh, I totally see that now. So, you don't, an editor is not the law. They're just the suggester, I guess. Right. And based on experience and, all the things that, you're working to be able to see those things. Does that make sense? Hope that makes sense.
No, yeah. And I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Dave because he said, yeah, we know what we're doing, in quotes.
Okay. You do.
They need us, man. Writers need editors. As wearing both of those hats, I will tell you, writers definitely need editors. So, yeah, Old Jester says the editor is the guide and the teacher. Yes, I 100% agree. Let's see.
Thanks.
I think we are about ready for our first author. Are you ready, Leslie?
I think so, yeah.
This is great because we haven't like met any of them in person, right? So you get to see these people face to face now and say, maybe I shouldn't have yelled at them so hard, or maybe I should have yelled at them more. You know, that happens too. Yeah, we'll figure that out. All right, so we're going to start with Matthew A.J. Anderson. Matthew. See if all of our tech works. It does. Zapo's the best.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
G'day from down under.
Yes, but apparently I'm down under. How funny is that on the screen? It's fine. That's because that's where I normally am, I think. Welcome, welcome from tomorrow. Is it nice tomorrow?
Yes.
We're going to have good weather? Okay, just checking. That joke never
cold
gets
for
old.
summer.
I'm so sorry. Let me see. Let me read your bio real quick. So Matthew A.J. Anderson was born in Queensland, Australia. A daydreamer and avid reader in his childhood, he grew up to love horror, mystery, and speculative fiction. He most enjoys writing stories that disturb, inspire, and intrigue. He is now living in Albury, Wodonga, New South Wales. He'll correct me later. And in his free time is working on short stories as well as larger fiction projects that he hopes to publish. Matt also posts some of his shorter writing as well as nonfiction pieces on the blog absurdwordnerd.blogspot.com.au. Excellent. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're glad you could make it. So this is your second year being in the anthology, yes?
Yes. I wrote a story for the misspelled anthology, Sight Unseen, but that's in the other book, which I believe you can find on Amazon.
Yes, you can. And quite frankly, I'm about to put them up on Draft to Digital, so you can get the digital copy anywhere. And right now you can get the paperback copy anywhere. So we're like, it's for anthology. You should be able to buy it wherever you want to buy it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, makes sense to me too. Let's see. So your story in this one was Full House. What was your inspiration for this story? Well, give us like the elevator pitch on what Full House is about.
Well, Full House takes the perspective of a secret government agency, which basically deals with the supernatural, horrible, the monstrous, the kind of things that would make people panic. They keep it on the down low. And the idea of this is basically a house where several people have disappeared. And so they have to enter this house and figure out what happened to the cultists that lived there, because it was a cult commune. And one of the agents of the kitchen has to go in and the kitchen, that's the non-government agency. She has to go in and find out where they all went, because none of them left the house.
So they're like, where are these cultists? So I love that story. What inspired you to write this one?
Well, it was twofold, actually. I had this idea a while ago for a story from the perspective of a pizza delivery guy who gets called to a house and gets trapped inside. And there's like 12 other people who are also trapped. And they start disappearing one by one, like a slasher movie. And I'm not going to reveal why they were disappearing. That would spoil this story as well. I found the problem I had with writing that story is that I struggle to do characterization without motivation, because the whole idea is that the characters would write the story, but if I don't have a plot, then I sort of find that a lot more difficult. So I sort of shelved that. And then when this anthology came up, I realized, well, hey, what if I wrote the sequel to that concept? That way they're already dead and the house is then abandoned, fits the theme, and then I could sort of explore and tell the story after the fact. I thought that'd be more interesting.
Yeah. Well, we definitely
and it was interesting. It was interesting.
I'm definitely glad people enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already talked, like, I remember, like I said, Leslie read all these stories first. So I didn't get to them till second. So she had marked all of these stories, yes. So, it appealed right away. Do you remember, Leslie, what it was about this story? She's like, no, it was months ago. It was months ago.
Like, I have slept since then. Something did. I mean, there must have been. I mean, it was so interesting and surprising, actually, the cause. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of those, like, having that little surprise in there is always, and the description I think was pretty good too, if I recall. So I think that's probably one of the reasons, but mostly the surprise of why. It's like
Yeah,
totally engrossing. So,
yeah, old Jester talking about the pizza guy. I remember that was someone asked. I'm like, do pizza guys even deliver at night?
yeah,
or over in the
morning or
sorry.
something. Yeah,
Yeah, it was in the morning. That's what it was. I was like, I don't. Maybe in Australia they do.
no. So I do have a question because that it was again some authors I know they play music while they write. Are you an author who does that? Do you have a soundtrack that you play when you're doing certain types of writing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. See, not so much music, because I just find that I find if I listen to music, then I want to sort of sing the music. So I find it's better to have ambient noise. And so actually, I've got a bunch of creepy ambient noise, like 2 hour long ambient noise things I found on YouTube. Just these dark, brooding drone sort of sounds, which I use when I'm writing something scary. So just to sort of stop the brain farts, keep you on the go, but also stops your mind from going elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Wait. You have a trick to keep your mind from going elsewhere?
Can you share?
Yeah, can you share with the audience? I'm not sure. Music doesn't cut it for me, man.
Well, it doesn't always work. That's why I have to plot out the story beforehand before I sit down to write it. So it stops the. Yeah.
No, I love it. Is there anything you're working on now that you're really excited about?
Well, there's two things I'm working on now. One of them I'm working on more stories set in the same universe. Basically, you might think, oh, it's cool, everything's interconnected, but at the same time, it's really just I created a world I really like, and I'm too lazy to do it again. so in fact, this story
you can do a whole collection someday. That's actually not that's a smart way to go.
And in fact, this story is technically interrelated to the magic and characters in the previous story I wrote for Misspelled, because they actually reference the people in green suits, and these are the people in green suits. So it's sort of like, so if you want to see that connection, you can go to Amazon right now. but no, the point is, so I'm actually working on more stories set in that world, which is more focused on like young adult, based on the kids in the town who are sort of discovering some of these crazy things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing I'm working on isn't really, it's fiction adjacent, but it's more, I've been intrigued with this idea for the longest time of, because I like content warnings, they make sense, but as a writer, I think that a content warning is also a spoiler. And I came up with this idea that instead of writing out, because if you write death, because people are worried about seeing death or suicide, then that also spoils what happens in the story. So instead of writing that, what if there was like pictograms? So I've been working on this idea of trigger keys that people can use in fiction, so they can have a content warning, which isn't a spoiler unless you need it to be.
Well, that's very interesting. That's a cool concept. It's a huge debate, right? You know, what do we trigger? What do we not? I think the only thing I've ever done is I'm not sure why we should do trigger warnings in horror. They're supposed to horrify you, right? So maybe if, you have these kind of things, maybe horror is not for you, right? There's so many other things to read. But again, I'm with you. It's just my personal opinion, because I also understand being triggered. So it's an interesting thing to have to worry about, especially when we write things, the spec fic where it can go anywhere.
Indeed.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So short stories and full-length novels. Do you have a novel out yet? Or are you still cranking out these short stories?
No, I mostly work on the short stories. The manuscripts for novella length, so not really novel, just sort of miniature ones. I've got about 5 or 6 of them in the back pocket, which I'm hoping to store so I can get enough. I'm thinking once I've got like 11, then I think I'll be confident enough to approach publisher and say, hey, I've got a series here. Let's go for it. But I'm still focusing on the short stories, especially now because I'm working quite often, so it's harder to find the time to sit down and write. But
for sure,
it's easy
100%.
for a short story.
I love it. Well, in honor of this money going to Toys for Tots, because that's where the Legion of Dorks charity has been pointed to the last 4 years, including just now. Wondering, what is your favorite Christmas toy you got as a child?
Oof, favorite Christmas toy?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, well, I'm pretty sure it was a Christmas toy. I got I don't even know if they're called because they're not Beanie Babies, but they were these tiny, about yay tall little anthropomorphized, so human legs and stuff. But little fluffy toys. I think they were called Beanie Buddies or something like that, some knockoff of Beanie Pals. But I had one that was a Dalmatian called Dominoes, and I remember, I got that one he was my favorite toy, and plot twist is that I lost him, and I don't know where I lost him. So if someone finds a little toy about yay big with ears sticking out,
send him to me, please.
Yes, still my favorite toy. Still an awesome little. I had many adventures with Dominoes. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Matthew, and we wish you nothing but luck, and we hope you send us a story next year.
Indeed. And I'll be floating around at the chat giving cheek probably for the rest of this. So.
Good. We'll take the cheek. Do it. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
And we have Miriam Thor next. Miriam. Miriam is another repeat offender. She had a story in the last anthology as well. Did you not?
I did.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. And then this story in this one, Miriam, is Meanings and Metal. And this is in the same world as the other ones?
Yep.
I love it. It was so exciting. All right. Let me read your bio real quick. So Miriam Thor grew up in Louisiana. After graduating from high school, she moved to North Carolina, where she attended Gardner-Webb University and earned her bachelor's degree in American Sign Language, which is so cool, by the way, and elementary education. Miriam currently lives in Alabama with her husband and cats. She is employed as a sign language interpreter at an elementary school. Wait, hold on. I have to stop. So you got a degree in American Sign Language and elementary school education, and you're using both of those things for your actual job.
I do. Yes.
I didn't even know that was legal. Leslie, do you know anyone who does that?
She's like the first person I've met.
Right? Like my degree's in a BS in biology, and that's not what I'm doing. That's awesome, Miriam. Good for you. That's called focus, man. You're gonna go somewhere in this world. Well, you already are. It's awesome. Her published works include a young adult fantasy novella titled Wish Granted, a contemporary Christian fiction novella titled Her First Noel, and a young adult Christian novel titled Listening to the Rain. Her short stories have been included in Misspelled Magic Gone Awry, yes, they were, Crunchy with Chocolate, and other publications. To learn more about Miriam or to find her published works, you can visit her website, miriamthor17.wixsite.com/author. You can also follow her on Twitter, if Twitter sticks around, at Miriam_Thor17, or subscribe to her blog at 3cs.org. Yay, excellent. I think we got y'all on there. Got it all on there. Yeah, excellent. Now, before we start to your story, we do want to say thank you to Spike Etch. She said she purchased the book. Zafo can make sure to put the link in the chat for everyone. Excellent. Thank you very much. If you'd like to pick up the book, the children will greatly appreciate it. So make sure to do that. Plus, there's incredible stories in there, like Miriam's, Meanings and Metal. Yes. Tell us about your story.
Well, it does use the same characters as my story that was in last year's anthology, A Measure of Magic. It's set in the Kingdom of Miralon, but quite a few years later than the first story. And at the beginning of the story, the two main characters, Paige and Eliana, find out that a dragonling, a baby dragon, has been abandoned. So they go and try to figure out what's going on with him. From the message they receive, they think he's deaf, so they're going to try to figure out how to communicate with him. So
I think that's pretty cool, considering the whole, sign language thing. I never connected that. That's pretty awesome. I love it. I love this world. I hope you write an entire series in this world. It's one of my favorites. I was so glad when you sent us another story.
It was really good. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Do you have, are those characters only in the two short stories you've submitted here, or do you have any novels with them or other short stories elsewhere?
I don't have any novels. I do have one other short story that was included in Crunchy with Chocolate, which is also an anthology. And it's set right in between these two stories. It's so I feel like they make more sense if you have read the middle story, but I mean it makes sense without it because short stories are supposed to.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, Dan says you're working on your own themed anthology, no doubt, right? You just collect them all together. Right.
That would be fun.
Right. Excellent. No, we're all excited. Let's see. Oh, Friday says thanks for helping kids like her nieces. So I'm assuming that means she has nieces that use ASL. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what is your favorite part of the process when you're doing, when you see a short story or you see an anthology you want to submit to? I mean, what process do you go through? How do you get your idea, and what's your favorite part of that process?
Well, this one was kind of different because like last year, Kelly told me how much she liked the world and that she'd like to see more. And so I was specifically trying to think of how to take those characters and like write a story that fit this topic. So I started already having the world, having the characters, and trying to come up with the plot line that would fit, which was different for me. That's not something I've usually done, but it was fun trying to figure out how to fit the story and everything. So
Mm-hmm. So that
it was
creative
clever.
process. Yeah, it was. It was really enjoyable.
Thank you. I enjoyed writing it a lot. I always like when I can take something from interpreting or sign language, something from that, and like pull it into my writing. I don't do it with everything because it would get tedious, but when I can, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. It works. Well, it makes sense too, because one of the magics when her magic isn't Paige, right? Where her magic isn't really strong, so she actually uses, uses her hands to kind of make these symbols that actually makes her magic more powerful. So it really is all connected now. I really like that.
Thanks.
It's very clever. Go ahead, Leslie. Oh, you have to interrupt me, so you just keep
going. Well, I don't. No, I didn't have anything in specific. I was just let's see. So of that story then, what is your favorite part of the story that you wrote?
That's hard. But I think probably toward the end, and this might give a spoiler for anyone who reads it, but toward the end, when the Dragonling first like actually uses runes himself and like speaks for himself, and it's like not just copying what they did, but it's like actual expressing himself using language for the first time, is probably my favorite. And I'm really biased because I do work with kids a lot of times that have language delays, and like watching them actually learn words and not just copy, but say like whole string sentences together and actually be able to express themselves is one of my favorite parts of my job. So I feel like getting to write about it, but it being a Dragonling that was probably my favorite part.
Oh, cool.
It's pretty cool. And your stories, because they're sophisticated enough to appeal to adults, but they're clean enough and have like, I don't know what I would call, I don't know if wholesome's the right word, but as safe for children anyways, values involved as well. So do you like introduce these to any of the children? You're elementary, they might be too little, but like, do you read it to them or anything?
Not with these, no, and not with my elementary kids. I did my young adult fantasy novella, Wish Granted. I did give a copy of it to a middle school library because I have worked, right now I'm elementary, but I've worked middle and high school too, interpreting. You kind of do all of it. So when I was working at a middle school when that one was published, so I was like, would you like a copy of it for your library? So the librarian was like, sure. So, hopefully some of them read it, but.
You did sign your copy before you gave it to the school, right?
I don't know that I did.
Oh, time to go back.
Yeah, go back.
Put your name in it, man. I love it. I love it. Well, same question. We asked at the beginning. I think we'll ask them for all of them, if it's okay with you, Leslie. Since this is for Toys for Tots, what was your favorite, and I don't know why I said it doesn't have to be Christmas, your favorite toy you had as a child?
Oh, I was gearing up for the Christmas answer, and now like
Christmas, it's like, okay. It's okay.
Trying to think if there was one in particular. The one I had like in mind, I know when I was like 2, I received like a doll or a toy that was Ernie from Sesame Street that I just took with me everywhere. I apparently called him Bernie, not Ernie, because I was little. But there's a picture of me like sleeping with him. I'm like, can't be more than like 2 or 3, and I'm like passed out under the Christmas tree. I've got my arm around.
That's so cute. Excellent. I love it. That's a great picture. Thank you so much, Miriam. Hopefully we get more stories for you in the future. We're hoping for full-length novels with these guys. I mean, by we, I mean
Right.
me. I really want it.
Yes. Me
so
too. That's 2 people now.
That's at least 2 votes right there. And we're editors. We're important, right, Leslie? Say yeah.
Right. Shh.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. We're on to our next author. And our next is Gregory D. Little. Where's our Greg?
Hey.
Hey, he's no stranger to the channel. Hey,
No.
Greg.
Hey, how are you doing, Kelly?
Not too bad. Hey, we're going to read your bio real quick, which I updated a little. Gregory D. Little is the author of both the Mutagen Deception series and the completed Unwilling Souls series. His short fiction can be found in The Colored Lens and in the A Game of Horns, Dragon Riders, Undercurrents, eclectically scientific and misspelled anthologies, and now abandoned anthology. He writes the kind of stories he likes to read, tales of human failure and redemption, set in strange worlds where, be they magical or technological, everything is not as it seems. And spiders. He's fond of spiders.
Why?
Everyone asked that.
Sorry, it's been asked. All right, Greg, why do you like spiders? You got to tell us.
Why?
I just have always liked spiders. I don't know. I think they're cute.
Well, having edited a few of your more macabre books, I'm going to say that's just why.
Yeah, maybe.
Other people are afraid of it, and you're like, I don't know. I think they're kind of interesting.
Yeah. I do. I guess I do sort of tend toward that sort of thing, I guess.
No, I could get that. I understand that. There's somebody on TikTok I'm following that she has these little jumping spiders as like pets. And she takes these videos of them doing fun things and feeding them and then she puts these little voices with them. It's hilarious.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Oh my gosh. If I can find her name, I will share it with you. Considering I used to be so terrified of spiders, I called my husband home from work one day to kill one on my desk. He didn't come. That's why I decided I couldn't be afraid of them anymore. But to watching these videos and thinking they're so cute. What do you think of spiders, Leslie?
No, thank you. I know they have their place and I know they do their job. It just shouldn't be in my house,
They can do it out there.
They can do it out there.
I love it. So Greg, this story in this book, and you also are an old hat. You're in a few of our just last one, just misspelled, right?
Yeah.
Just misspelled. And your other series, which is awesome, and people should definitely get it. The Soul of the Beast is your story in this one, and that is from your Unwilling Souls series. So tell us a little bit about your story.
So yeah, it stars a minor character and that tends to be what my I have several stories set in the Unwilling Souls universe, and they tend to focus on more minor characters, usually doing things peripheral to the main plot. So I try to make it so that each story stands alone, but if you've read the books, it also kind of informs your reading of the books a little bit more. This one features a character called Piter, and he is a researcher who is on an expedition to find a mysterious island he's been searching for some time, both for academic purposes, but also for some more personal causes, which he's sort of gotten himself into, and then has to get himself out of over the course of the story, if he can.
Excellent. I love this one. I love the depictions. I love the way that you depict your gods are fascinating. I love the story building in this. Let's see, this one was one of my stories. Just so the audience knows, after the initial reading, I edited some and Leslie edited some. So she knows some better than I do, and I know some better than she does. But I'm going to throw under the bus anyways and say, do you remember anything in this story that really appealed to you?
I really liked the character, Piter. He was, being an older guy, right? And I mean, he has his addictions and and just what he's looking for, and then what he finds on the island. It was like, I'm totally fascinated by that, and everything about it. I mean, I haven't read any of your other stories in that universe, but I would be drawn to do that. So I'm going to go back to you. It's like, tell me about that series a little bit that this story came out of.
So the series is it's an epic fantasy, and it's stars a girl named Cess, who does not feature in the story, I should point out, but she's off doing her own thing. This is set roughly between the first and second books, and the series, Cess is the child of two parents who were on opposite sides of this cultural Cold War. They're bitter enemies, sworn rivals. And in the background of all this, and perhaps involving her parents to some degree, the planet's imprisoned gods at the hollowed out center of the world, are trying to break free and sort of continue the destruction they were raining down on the human race when they were first imprisoned. So that ties into the story a little bit, which without going into too much detail, to avoid spoilers, at least one of the gods may or may not be involved in the story. And
oh, come on, there's a god in it. That's not giving away anything. That's right at the beginning.
There's a god in it.
There's definitely a god in it.
And the world also features cities built into these giant, the bodies of these giant beasts that the gods raised up to help try and squash humanity. And that may or may not also play into the story, one of these beasts. And so that was kind of fun, as I got to, because I have my map that has all the beasts laid out and where all the cities are. And this is not on the map, so I got to play a little bit off the map, sort of a Here's There Be Dragons kind of a story, which was fun with this. I don't know, I had a lot of fun with this. I wrote it a while back, and I've just been sort of waiting for the right home for it, and was really pleased that it worked so well for this anthology.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was an abandoned island, and abandoned lots of things, actually.
Yes.
Dave wants to know, was it a conscious choice to make an academic the hero rather than an adventurer?
Yes, I thought, and I apologize for preempting the answer in the chat there. Dave is shaking his head at me.
Probably.
I think in a fantasy setting, having an academic researcher is a little bit of a departure, something you don't normally see. And I thought having him being an older researcher who's got some aches and pains, he's not really he's never gone on an adventure before, but he has to set out on this one. He knows he has the strength for this one adventure. I thought that was just kind of an interesting take on a hero for a fantasy story, one you don't see that often. And I had a lot of fun writing Piter, and he shows up several times in the books, the main sequence books. And I had fun writing him there too. He's a fun character. I like him a lot.
It's pretty cool. It was a lot of fun. The chatter's still talking about spiders, just for the record. That's why you put it in your bio, isn't it?
People remember.
That's right.
Spider guy.
I love it. No, it's fun having stories now, because you write. Actually, you're pretty prolific. I have fun. We have super secret science fiction project coming up next.
Yes, my science fiction comedy.
I'm so excited about that one. So I was going to ask you, what are you most excited about that's coming up next? And I already said what I'm most excited about. What are you most excited about that you're working on?
We've got the second book in my Mutagen Deception series coming out in April, and that is The Dying World. I have just turned in my last edits to Kelly about a week ago, and she hasn't come back and yelled at me, so I don't think they must not be too bad.
Passed on to Birdie.
Excellent. And so we're very excited. I did not know how I was going to follow up the first one, and
me neither. And you did it. Holy moly! Did you do it?
I'm glad. I liked it, but I don't trust me. I'm biased. So the fact that you were happy with it makes me happy. So I'm really excited. I think it can turn out really, really well, and I'm excited to keep going with the series and see where we go from here. But this one's for everyone who enjoyed the first one. This one is equally wild, I will say, if not more wild, potentially.
It's pretty incredible. Surprised me.
Well,
real quick before we get on to your arch nemesis, the next writer, what is your favorite childhood toy?
Oh, I'm sure my mom would give a different answer back from before I was like fully having a lot of memories. But I recall my brother and I got a Super Nintendo one year for Christmas, and that was a very well loved toy. I don't know if that counts as a toy, but I played the heck out of that. And actually played. I remember Final Fantasy II, which is I guess technically Final Fantasy IV in the Japanese numbering, was a game where the first video game I played where I was blown away by the story, and that actually had a big influence on me. My desire to tell stories was games like that. So that's kind of why that sticks out in my head, I think. But.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Greg. We look forward to where you're going from here. There's only up.
I'm excited. Lots of fun things coming.
Very cool. It's hard to keep my mouth shut. It's really hard. So we have your arch nemesis on next. So we're going to move on to DH.
Excellent.
I love it. They're actually really close friends, but it's much more fun to see the nemesis part. Hey, how are you, Dave? No, you're just going to be muted. So you can't even yell at him because we can't hear you. He's like, no. You're probably muted in Teams because when you joined, it'll automatically mute you. By the way, Dave is our most experienced streamer, just for the record.
Am I unmuted now?
There you go.
Hey.
Gotcha.
All right, there we go.
Gotcha.
All right.
Welcome.
Sorry about that.
No, please. You're all good. You're awesome. You rated, man. Look at all these people in here that adore you. You've earned it.
There they are. I'm trying to try not to look at the chat right now because I love that head emote of me. So I'm going to try to stay focused.
It's all your fault. You should have come to DragonCon.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's right. You guys saw DragonCon, Dave.
That's right.
You can attest to it's being real.
Yeah. We have some pictures with it. Quick, let me read your bio. D.H. Dunn writes fantasy and adventure fiction for readers who enjoy unexpected heroes, deep characters, unusual monsters, and imaginative worlds. He is the author of 10 published novels, including the Fractured Everest series. A former U.S. Navy sailor, he now wanders the coasts and forests of Maine, looking for hope and adventure wherever he can find it. Welcome, Dave. How are you doing this evening?
Hi. It's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, stranger, whom I've never seen before.
Right. No, I'm doing great. And I am wearing. Oh, shut up, Coro. I knew somebody would dig me on that main thing. The sweater that I'm wearing right now was given to me tonight by my chat. So Coro, Killer Tuna, and Very Tiny Burb, who are all in the chat right now, they gave me the sweater because it looks like a sweater in the game that I stream, and I talk about that sweater all the time. I call this the Chris Evans from Knives Out sweater. And they actually sent it to me for Christmas. That's how.
For the record, just like him.
I get that all the time. I get it all the time.
Right, Leslie? Does he look just like Chris Evans?
Absolutely. That's the sweater.
It's the spitting image. It's uncanny. That's right, Greg. It's uncanny.
I love it. Well, you chose the right thing to wear it for because you look very authory right now.
It's very authory. It's quite comfortable also.
I like it. Well, let's see. Your story, this is your first story in our anthologies. Again, we read you. You're quite accomplished writer. It's not like you're a beginner writer, but first story for us. So we are very, very honored that you sent it to us. And it's nice to have a science fiction one. So the title of this one is The Quiet Tremor of a Hollow Heart. And it was really cool. And most of your stuff is fantasy. So I'm wondering, why did you decide to go more like hard sci-fi for this one?
I deliberately picked things I hadn't done because I thought that would challenge me to like exercise muscles I hadn't used, and that might make me produce a better story if I was trying to do so. Like everything about that story was like specifically designed to be things I hadn't done or hadn't done much. Like it's a first person. I never write first person. It's hard SF. I never write SF, let alone hard SF. It's horror. It's got horror elements. I don't write horror. And so I wanted to give myself those challenges, like, to make it more gritty for me, and it worked.
It did. It definitely worked. So what did you think, Leslie, when you read it?
Yeah, that was surprising. I see. I like the little twist, that surprise at the end, right? So, how things are, and it has a certain feel about it too. I can't. It's hard for me to describe, that there's a certain, I don't know, there's a feel to it. And that's all I can say because I can't find the word. So, but anyway, yeah, it was
not
really
just that, it's
interesting.
hard to talk about it and not give it away, right? Yeah.
Right. You can't say anything. So, except that, wow, that was really something. So
you got to read it.
Yeah, right.
It is very different from anything else I've written, and yeah, it is kind of hard to talk about it without giving too much away. But I was honored that you guys picked it, and while I have 10 published novels, they're all self-published. I think that's important to distinguish. So this is the first paid sale that I have, and it's really exciting.
So, and I'm going to ask, here's the, where did you, okay, and again, can't say too much because you don't want to give it away, but where did that idea come from, other than the fact that you wanted to do something you hadn't done and you wanted to do hard sci-fi?
It came from, once I knew I wanted to do science fiction, I very quickly kind of had this idea of like a lighthouse, like a very abandoned, isolated station somewhere where like maybe there's only one person still there, maybe there's only two people there, and eventually there was no one there. And just way off on the outskirts, maybe orbiting some piece of crap planet that nobody cares about. And like that's really kind of where it started for me. And then I knew that I wanted my main character to be an AI, and I wanted it to be basically not necessarily genderless, but no specified gender. I wanted to write it in a way where the gender could be whatever you wanted it to be. And once I got then I always write with just asking myself questions. Okay, well, if you got this AI, why is it there? And then you just answer that question, and then you just keep going from there. So it really started with this kind of lighthouse idea of, really a, isolated outpost somewhere that like nobody cares about anymore and is forgotten, because that's the point of the anthology.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I love it. That's very cool. Yeah. So you like crafted it just based on all of these ideas. You kind of melded them together to make them work.
Yeah. Which I guess I got lucky in that they, because sometimes
that's called talent and hard work, man.
Well, sometimes you have ideas, because usually I think, for me anyway, when I write stuff, like usually it's one or two ideas that then got put together. And sometimes they don't go together well. And unfortunately, in this case, they did. So that's where the luck part comes in.
I love it. Okay. Literally, both the idea and the story. That's why it's in there. I will say, I don't know if Jen Bear loves it, though, because Jen Bear went through and did proofreading. Uh-huh. And she did everyone's story. And she was like, all of the little, all the warnings, because, we said it's sci-fi, right? So there's all these warnings. She was like, they're all formatted differently. So I made them all like this. I'm like, great, thanks. And I just changed all the way she did it. It was awesome.
They look fine.
So Jen Bear might have a different idea of how much she loved this story.
Yes. I felt bad when I was writing it. I was thinking, if I get in, the proofreader is going to hate me. The formatter is going to hate me. Because that's what I do on my day job, is I deal with editors and proofreaders and formatters. And because I felt bad because I usually work with those people.
So wait, you're telling me you understood our pain and you put us through it anyways?
Right. You knew better?
And I did. Yes.
Okay. All right. Your soon to be DM again is going to remember that. I just want you to know. That's awesome. Well, you play Dungeons and Dragons with us on Monday night. What do you like about that, playing that kind of game? Besides tormenting Greg.
Right. I was going to say the urge to slam Greg here is just so huge. It's so hard. I think it's amazing to be part of a group story. I think that's because the Dungeons and Dragons that we play Monday night is not just people playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's writers playing Dungeons and Dragons. Everyone playing there is a writer. And having all of these writers who have that kind of character building skill built into them, kind of crafting a story together is really, really interesting. And it's really cool because I played D&D when I was younger, and there's a lot of people who get that kind of main character syndrome where they think the game has to be all about them. But writers, I think, intrinsically no, it's in service of the story, not in service of my character. And it's been neat to watch how everybody works so well together for that. So the dice throwing and everything is all super fun, but the thing that I really like is just seeing where the story goes that we're helping move.
Yeah, I agree. It's really nice. In this case, the characters really are talking to us.
Yes,
literal.
Yes, they are. They are.
What was a favorite toy when you were growing up?
I was worried Greg was going to take mine, but because that would be a Greg thing to do. But for me, it was definitely Legos. And,
good call. Yeah.
And Legos not just for the building aspect, but for the storytelling aspect. I mean, as a kid, I used to build things with Legos, and then like little cities and castles and stuff, and then tell the story of what is happening in there. It's a good storytelling tool, and in addition to just being a good building toy.
That's true. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Dave. And we are going to move on to our next author. We're on with Scott Edelman. Hello,
hey,
Scott. Yeah, Matt
How
in the chat says, hello. Yeah, we have a lot of diversity in these stories so far, and we definitely do. And Scott, this definitely brings to mind yours because there's no story in here like yours at all.
Nope.
So let me read your bio
that
first.
That could be good or bad, depending on what you mean.
Well, of course it's good. Did I tell you we squeezed them all in?
Okay, good.
All right, so let me read your bio, and then we'll let Leslie ask you some questions. Scott Edelman. Is it Edelman?
Edelman, yes. You got it right, and so many people don't, so congratulations.
Thank you. That was just luck. Scott Edelman has published more than 100 short stories in Analog, The Twilight Zone, Weird Book, Parsec, and dozens of other magazines and anthologies. Many of those stories can be found in his collections, These Words Are Haunted, What Will Come After, which was a finalist for the Bram Stoker and Shirley Jackson Memorial Awards. Nicely done. What Will We Still Talk About? Tell me like you've done before.
Tell me like you've done before.
Oh, there you go. It's in the reading. There you go. And Things That Never Happened. Additionally, Edelman worked for the Sci-Fi Channel for more than 13 years as editor of Science Fiction Weekly, Sci-Fi Wire, and Blaster. He was the founding editor of Science Fiction Age, which he edited during its entire 8-year run. He has been a 4-time Hugo Award finalist for Best Editor and an 8-time Bram Stoker Award finalist. He is also the host of Eating the Fantastic, a podcast which has allowed listeners to eavesdrop on his meals with writers and editors since 2016. He can be found on Twitter at Scott Edelman and at scottedelman.com. Excellent, Scott. Welcome.
Welcome. All right.
Thank you.
So Leslie,
tell us about your story. I mean, of course, all the same questions, right? Where it is, again, it has its own feel, right? And it's a completely different type of story than any of the other ones in there, which is really good. I mean, that's what you're looking for, right? But 100%. Just tell us about your story, first of all.
All right. Well, without giving away too much, I'll explain the basis of it and why I thought it fit with the abandoned theme, which all the stories are supposed to do. Basically, you meet an old woman, a young child who are sort of traveling together. The woman might be lost or confused. You're not quite sure what's going on. You don't know what their relationship is, who they are to each other, where they're heading, and so forth. And basically, the story is a discovery of what actually happened, and you end up finding out who was abandoned and why, and whether we can change that. And the way the story came to me, sometimes I don't know when stories come to me. This one had a very specific origin. When I was driving home with my wife, we looked up on the highway, as some of us do. You see they have these amber alerts. They have when kids are missing. They have silver alerts when old people are sort of losing it and might drive off. And I start to think, what happens if I put all of those alerts together in the same story? What would that story be like if we had both of the things going on? And again, there's a puzzle to who the people are, who the amber alert means, who the silver alert means. But that's basically how the story ended up coming about. And I think it perfectly fit with the idea of being abandoned, and then maybe can you save people from being abandoned as well. So that's how this one happened, without spoiling too much of.
Right. And then there's the layers in there. That's one of the things we really liked is that it's not just one type of abandonment. There are different layers of that type of thing. So in different again, gosh, I can't say too much. So
Yeah,
I won't
well,
say
you've
anything
got the
else.
the child, and you've got the old lady with her past as a child, and what does it all mean, and what are you seeing when, and all that. So, yeah, again, I always hate to give too much away, but hopefully it's rewarding, and hopefully, I know you were talking earlier about horror and what people have with endings and things like this. This isn't a horror story. I think of this more as a Twilight Zone-ish kind of fantasy story, but this is one where I think people, when they get to the ending, will be happy for how the story resolves itself, and I wanted there to be a good feeling to it.
Yeah, there's a definitely, and with a lot of the stories in here, there's hope. It's not, it's abandoned, but it's more of intrigue and discovery rather than abandon ye all hope.
I think so, and one of the things I've discovered as I've been looking through the number of stories I've written over the last few years, that the stories, particularly over the last pandemic years that aren't quite over, I've been trying to deliver more hope than I might have in the past. I was just counting up the stories that I've had published recently and seeing they're heavily weighted to science fiction and fantasy. And it's like 10% horror, 90% science fiction and fantasy. And I'd say it used to be some years it was flipped the other way. And in this particular time, I felt, whether it was consciously, I think it was unconsciously, then I realized and made it more conscious that I was trying to do more stories that people did not run screaming from. Not that there's anything wrong with horror. So I'm nominated for the Bram Stoker Award 8 times. I happen to be people tell me I should stop using the word Susan Lucci because that's an old word, but I am the Susan Lucci of the.
We remember. I bet Leslie remembers.
Yeah.
I know who that is. Yes.
Yes.
So I have been nominated more times without ever having won than anyone else. Obviously, Stephen King has been nominated many more times and has lost more than I have. But he's been nominated 50 times or something like that. But I am at 0 and 8, so no one has lost more without ever having won, if that makes sense. So they call me the Susan Lucci of the HWI.
There's still hope. There's still hope.
Yes, it'll happen
There's
eventually.
always
Those 8 nominations have spread across 20 years. So
Susan did eventually win.
yes, she did. Yes, but my son and other people said, Scott, you got to start retiring the word Susan Lucci. What word would you use now? And I can't think of one. She's so iconic as the word you use when you refer to someone who's nominated but never wins.
Yeah, I don't know if
I'm the Susan Lucci, I guess.
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I have to think about it. I don't think there is anyone. But no, we loved. Well, the part I loved about your story was that it was different, right? There's not really a sci-fi fantasy element exactly. But my favorite part was how cleverly it was constructed, because I'll tell you, Leslie and I went back and forth about what it meant, what was really happening. Right? Like that's very cleverly done, that you can have two editors go back and forth over, is that what it means, or is this what it means? Like, I mean, it could be either. It's really well done.
Thank you. Well, I know there are a lot of people who like ambiguity and a lot of people who don't like ambiguity. So it can be very divisive. I've been on panels and conventions about that, discussing, and often a lot of what I deal with in the story is what to leave out rather than what to put in, because I'm hinting at the things that are happening rather than hitting over the head. And that balance, I think, is the hardest part of any story. You want just enough information that they get it, but not too much that they say, "Oh, come on, you told us that already. I don't need to know that anymore. Shut up." But if there's too little, then people are totally lost. So I think that is the most difficult line to walk in a story, is to when there's too much and when there's not enough. But I do like to play with that puzzle. For me, the puzzle of the story is often to have the reader slightly confused and say, "Okay, what exactly is going on here?" And the puzzle is so interesting that they read forward as little tiny pieces of information get dribbled out, as opposed to the other kind of story where the plot is very obvious, which can be wonderful too. It's a different kind. I've done those as well, but this was one of the latter kind, where it was really trying to keep you off balance until the final puzzle pieces come together as you approach the end of the story. And as you said, you could still debate as to what exactly happened at the end. But other than the fact, I hope you all agree that things turned out well. That I don't consider a spoiler. That I'm not delivering a downer of a story with this one.
We do like happy endings, I have to say. I think Leslie does too, right, Leslie?
I do. I'm a happy ending girl. Yep, absolutely.
Me too. So last question. What was your favorite toy growing up?
Well, there was a toy called Mr. Machine, and if you go on YouTube and Google it, you can find
Mhm.
early commercials for this. It was basically an invisible outer shell robot with a lot of whirligigs and springs and everything that you basically put together. And all it did
Mhm.
is walk forward and backward. It didn't really do much for things that took place in the 60s because I'm an older guy. And I know later on they made a cheaper version where it didn't have as many moving parts and it was made of cheaper plastic. But that was the one when I saw those commercials on TV and begged my parents for them. And they finally got it for me. Putting that thing together was a lot of fun. So, but you can see it too if you go on YouTube and type in Mr. Machine. There's also a comic book called Mr. Machine, so don't go there. But this was a Mr. Machine toy. That was my favorite. Probably when I
That's
was
awesome.
5 or 6 years old.
Your parents were like, "Yay, he's gonna be an engineer," and then you went into entertainment. Nice job, Scott.
I know. Yes, we all disappoint everybody, but that's our job as kids, right? To disappoint our parents in an unusual way.
That's right. That was awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on, Scott. And we are going to
Thanks for
move on
letting
to
me
our
be a
next
part of the
one.
book.
Excellent, excellent. I love it. All right. So our next is Jessica Guernsey. Jessica, as Jessica's coming over, please make sure to get your copy. Zepho will put the link up there. Remember, 50% of all profit goes to the Legion of Dorks charity, which is Toys for Tots. And once they're paid for, all of it does. So we want to give the children lots of toys. So please make sure to get your copy. Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
And you were in Misspelled as well. We have a lot of repeat offenders this year.
Yes.
I know. That was awesome. Here, let me read your bio real quick. Jessica Guernsey writes urban and contemporary fantasy novels and short stories. A BYU
Alumna. That
alumna.
is the correct form of
It is?
that because I am female and it is alum.
Huh. I should know that as an editor. I didn't. Okay. That's why we Google a lot of things, by the way. Secret of your editor, right, Leslie? There's a lot
Right.
of Googling involved, right? Jessica, you too,
Yeah.
right? There's a
Oh, I
lot
know.
of
I'll feel
Googling.
you.
Yeah.
I'll feel you.
Okay, anyways.
Chicago manual
with the
style online is my favorite thing.
Yes, I don't know what I would do without it. Okay, especially when they change things like how to hyphenate colors. Gosh, doggone them.
No,
All right.
they changed how to do H's. Like why?
No, they
Why
did
do
not.
that
No,
thing?
they didn't. Oh no.
Not
Okay.
recently.
Oh, sorry.
I'm elderly, remember? So I was from the last time I looked at Chicago Manual of Style
Mhm.
to recently when I started looking at it again. I'm like, I could be mistaken. It could be AP style. I'm getting confused because that's where I learned.
Yep.
So,
Same. Yep. No, I'm with you. I do that too. All right. Anyways, Jessica, with her degree in journalism, that's the wrong one. It's not CMS. Her work is published in magazines and anthologies. By day, she crushes dreams as a slush pile reader for multiple publishers. During November's NaNoWriMo, Jessica is a municipal liaison for the Utah Elsewhere region. Frequently, she can be found at writing conferences. She isn't difficult to spot. Just look for the extrovert. While she spent her teenage angst in Texas, she now lives on a mountain in Utah. Discover more stories at jessicaguernsey.com. Yay, Jessica! And Leslie did your story Powerless, right? She was your editor?
Yes.
Excellent. So Leslie, I'm going to hand it to you.
Oh, well, and I'm going to hand it back to you. Tell us about your story.
I have no questions for her. It was a weird story. No, I'm just
No.
We weren't kidding about Trial by Fire. Poor Leslie was thrown in there, man. And she survived.
Oh.
Look at her. She looks good.
Still smiling.
No, first dunk into the slush pile. It's rough.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to read 502 stories for I'm getting my master's in publishing, and we are putting together an anthology, which several of the lovely people here have submitted to, and so we just had to go through the slush. And I had this woman, lovely person, who was like, every story was like a 10, and this was just beautiful. I'm like, it didn't have conflict. Yeah, it just, oh, this was so great. There wasn't even a mermaid in it, because that was our theme, mermaids. Yeah, it was really difficult, and I had to like pry some stories out of her hands because I'm like, let them go. So yeah,
You cannot
that
be
was a
nice
winning
and be an
experience
editor.
for
Yeah,
me.
you have to be
You know,
professional.
I've heard that once or twice, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
fun,
your
though.
story.
Oh,
Your
go
story.
ahead.
Tell us about your story.
Okay. It has words. Okay, it is about a theoretical electrical engineer who is called in to turn the power back on a crashed spaceship that has been buried for 300 years. So yeah,
Okay.
that's my story.
That's your story.
That's literally abandoned.
Yes, it was
Yes.
abandoned for 300 years,
That's right.
buried in a farmer's field, because that's where you keep your spaceships.
Well, I mean,
So
you do
do
in
you-
this case. Sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Answer Kelly's first.
Oh, what did Kelly say?
I didn't ask anything.
Oh, you
See,
didn't ask me?
here's
Oh,
the funny
okay.
thing. The funny part is with Jessica, where she's like, look for the introvert or extrovert. I get her. We find each other at conferences all the time. We're like, oh, who's that other person talking above everyone else? Yeah, all right, I got it. It had to be Jessica. Who else would it be?
No.
Same here.
Who's the
Yeah.
other person collecting all the introverts who don't know what to do and saying, "Come with me, come
Let's go
come
to
sit by
lunch."
me." That's how I get 90% of my friends. I collect them.
You
Yeah,
collect.
that's right. I like it. Collect introverts. Introverts like to be collected. It's fine.
Yeah, we do. It's good. It's all
See,
good.
Don't run away.
All right.
So do you typically write because this is more of like along the sci-fi, right? So is that your typical I'm sorry, was that in your bio? Did I miss that? Did you
Well,
typically
actually, it's urban fantasy and sci-fi. Mostly write fantasy, urban fantasy. I like contemporary settings, but I have been getting more into the sci-fi realm. Sci-fi is a little bit more loosey-goosey. Like you can just make stuff up, and like people will be totally, yeah, I accept that. This is the truth now. So as I've been writing a little bit more sci-fi now. It's fun. It's fun.
It is fun. It is fun. So where'd you get the idea for this particular? Did you have the story in your head already, or did you come
No,
up with it
I
after you
wrote
saw
it.
the?
I wrote it for the call, but I had an idea for the story in my head for a long time. And then when I saw the call, I was like, I should write that one. So way back in the 80s, one of my
Whoa, long time ago now. Back in time.
90s? I don't know. Back when I was really cute. I read this book by Jack
Tell
McDevitt,
cute.
and it's had two different names. One is called The Roundhouse, and basically it's the same premise. They find a spaceship buried in the well, it's not a spaceship, it's actually a yacht, but you don't find that out till later. It's an alien's yacht. They find it buried in a farmer's field, and they use it. They go on to discover where it was originally docked, and they find the roundhouse. But and then explore worlds and stuff like that, and die, of course, because why not? And so I liked that idea of a spaceship that had been buried and that someone found it. It's completely random. So it's not crashed, it's not being stored at Area 51. It's still there where it landed, and someone finds it. And it's obviously not a made in America kind of thing.
Right.
So I really wanted to write that idea. I really liked that story. I liked where it went, but I wanted to put my own spin on it.
And so your protagonist, the gal, she's really something. She's
her a
really
lot.
something. So, I mean, is she based on anybody, or is it like a whole, did you just make her up out of the blue, or, I mean.
She walked into my head and said, "You should write this story with me in it." And I said, "Okay."
Sounds like her.
Totally sounds like her.
That's frequently how a lot of my characters come about, is they're just kind of like, "Hey, write a story about me." And I'm like, "Sure, what do you like?" So yeah, I already had this story idea, and then she came along. But frequently I have the character, and then I have to build the story for them. So yeah, so I was fiddling with this idea, and actually beta readers who read my story first thought she was a dude. So because she's not submissive, and she
No,
holds
she's
her
not.
own, and so I had to go back in and add a little bit more cues to let them know that no, this was a woman who's just very confident and knows that she's smarter than everyone else literally in the room.
I'm going to say that says more about the readers than your writing.
That could be.
Yeah, for the record. Totally. Awesome. All right, so last question is, what was your favorite childhood toy?
My dog. The family dog, probably, honestly.
That poor dog. Did you dress it up?
It was the golden retriever. It wanted to be. He wanted to wrestle. He wanted to wrestle.
All right, yeah, fair.
He didn't much like when I dressed him up in clothes and we put on plays together. He didn't much like that. But yeah, he was my favorite to play with.
Aww. And you just got a new puppy. How's your new girl?
Well, she's barking in the other room. So yeah.
Well, I can't hear her, so good.
Her name is Mara, which means the darkness, and she is inherently evil. We've determined. So yeah, she is a delight.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jessica, you were wonderful. And we are going to move on to our next author. I think Leslie might know a little bit.
Just a little.
Just a little. Thank you, Jessica.
Bye.
All right, we are on with Dan Bridgewater. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Hi,
Hello.
nice to meet you.
What a coincidence! You and Leslie have the same last name. What's up with that?
When does that
That's
happen?
crazy. Crazy. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's what can you say about your wife, especially when
Do I need to leave now? Is that what?
no.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
just
a
say
good
that
point. Nobody
I
has given us lots of praises. Now it's up to you, Dan.
well, it's easy enough. I was the first beneficiary of her editing skills. Everything I've ever sold has gone through her hands and been made much better by it. So she keeps me on track for it, and she keeps me from repeating myself and repeating myself and repeating myself.
And I have a bag of ellipses if anybody needs them.
Yeah, I may be overly fond of the drama dots, as they are sometimes referred to, but the ellipses, yes, I love them greatly. I'm
That's
trying to
funny.
learn the proper use of the M dash, but ellipses, they're perfect.
Yeah, they're perfect in a bag, not in a story. Okay, let me read your bio real quick, though. So some of Dan Bridgewater's earliest memories include watching Godzilla movies and Star Trek, the original, of course, TOS. This love of monster movies and TV sci-fi led to his reading every bit of science fiction and fantasy he could get his hands on. Eventually, all those stories in his head reached some sort of critical mass, and now he's starting to create his own. An Army brat and a Marine veteran, Dan has, talk about rebel, geez. Oh, sorry, Army brat and a Marine veteran. Dan has lived on both coasts, the Midwest, Korea, and Kuwait. He now lives with his wife and daughters in Colorado, where he supports training for the U.S. military. Excellent. Sorry, we had to do the formal stuff, you know.
Right.
That sounds accurate. I will cop to that bio.
That's and the rebel, I mean, come on, man. Army brat, and you joined the Marines? How did that go over?
Dad was pretty. Well, I told him at the time that the Marine Corps was offering me the opportunity to fly for them, and that worked out right up until I scared a naval flight instructor, and they asked me to reevaluate what I wanted to do in the Corps. So that's how that happened. But
and your dad just
so I do
and looked
things.
at you.
Yeah, Dad was like, well, Dad jumped out of perfectly functional airplanes, so I don't think he has a whole lot of room to.
No judgment question now. Yes, I'm with you. Excellent. So your story was The Witch of the Mines. The Witch of the Mines. Tell us about your story.
Well, when the topic of abandoned spaces comes up, I immediately started thinking about, caves and mines and things of that nature. And then it occurred to me, well, if it's abandoned by people, what is going to go in there? And generally I write science fiction, but for this one, as you say, the character just came in and said, this is what we're going to do. So I like stories built around families of choice or found families. And I like, as Leslie does, the happier ending story. So, you have that conflict of the abandoned space, the abandoned child, the orphan that finds a new family and finds another home. And so that's what I enjoyed writing. And a lot of that, once you get to that point, a lot of the story just kind of presents itself, and it's just taking notes at that point. It was an easy write, to be honest.
That's awesome. Well, we quite enjoyed it. It was nice. I'm actually impressed about how many authors were stepping outside of their comfort zone writing these short stories. It's kind of a fun thing about them. Yeah. So I'm wondering, do you use short stories to experiment usually, or did it just happen for this one?
Well, for this one, I've been trying to write a little more fantasy, but it's a matter of balancing time and everything. Mm-hmm. And this one, it sprang full blown. It's like, if I'm going to get anything else done, I have to write this one first, because it's taking up a lot of the brain space. And it was fun. It gave me a chance to do some research into some of the things that, I love fantasy. I love reading fantasy. Right. So that gave me an opportunity to go back and throw in some of the concepts that I enjoyed, reading when I was growing up. So if that makes any sense.
Oh, it totally does. I have a very important question, though. What was your favorite episode of Star Trek TOS?
Well, I will tell you the first one that I can remember seeing, mm-hmm. And the one that terrified me is the Salt Vampire episode.
Yeah, like the very first one. Yes.
Yes. And of course, I was right at that age where they were probably just starting syndication. So obviously, I never saw it for real. But that whole concept of
it was on when I got home from school.
Well, my older brother was a big fan, and he's 8 years older than me. We have nothing we can do together except that. So, but that first, you see that scene where they are presenting the lady from 3 different points of view, and she's different to Kirk, she's different to McCoy, she's different to everybody who looks at her, sees something slightly different, and you're going, what the hell is going on here? So it's like, and then it just gets creepy as hell. And at the time, I think I was 5 or 6, maybe, scared the hell out of me. Loved it.
You're like, and it was the best.
It was awesome. And of course, the Space Seed with Khan, Ricardo Montalban. Not only is that a great episode all by itself, it is actually made 10 times greater by the movie Wrath of Khan. Makes you want to go back and see it again and see how they threaded that all together, and it's awesome. So yeah. I love Khan.
Yeah, some great storytelling. Well, at least you liked sci-fi and you wrote sci-fi mostly, right? So it's fun doing fantasy, right? I love sci-fi and I write mostly fantasy. I don't know what's up with that. You never know. So Leslie, tell us all of Dan's dark, deep secrets right now while we're live. Go.
Well,
lazy, procrastinator, disorganized.
I asked Leslie, Dan, not you.
Words in my mouth.
See?
I've heard the words coming out. No, I'm just.
I love it. She's like, no, I can't say anything. I might say something real.
Oh, I can't.
She's smart. She's so smart. It's why y'all are still married. You are both very smart. You compliment her and she keeps her mouth shut. That's the secret to a marriage right there.
You're great, Dan.
I love it. I do have to thank you, Dan, though, because you are the one who brought Leslie to Superstars. So you brought her and you went and introduced her around, like you said, introvert, right? So, and so you went and introduced her around, and it's one of the most important people I have met in my career. So thank you for introducing her to me. I owe you.
Well, thank you.
So I'm very excited.
Thank you, Dan.
She's having a lot of fun, and it's great.
It's awesome.
You always like to see loved ones enjoying what they're doing. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You're fine.
He's not emotional. He's just just water gone down the wrong tube there.
Sure it is. No, he's just thinking about what Leslie said about me when I said, you want to read 200 stories?
I heard the part that didn't go on the call. 200 stories. No.
Yeah. No,
It
that was the fun part. So you're totally in for next year, right, Leslie? Okay, anyways. No, Dan. So last question. What is your favorite childhood toy?
Well, it all pertains. I'd have to say that the two most the one I remember the most individually is Shogun Warriors. They were the toys. They were probably about 2.5 feet tall robots, based off the Japanese anime. Great times. There was like 3 or 4 of them. Then they made a Godzilla one, which, Godzilla, awesome. And the other thing that was probably the gift I remember most is when my brother got me the Tolkien boxed set. So you
Was
got
it like
the
leather
sci-fi
bound?
and not leather bound. Please, I was 12. You don't give a 12-year-old leather bound. So on the one hand, you've got the space robots, and on the other hand, you have the grand master of all fantasy, Tolkien. So those were the gifts that are probably favorite of all time growing up.
I love it.
So
I love it. Great gifts. What great parents you had.
Tolerant and understanding of the 5th child. Yes, I appreciate it greatly.
Yeah, Dave Dunn says Shogun Warriors were awesome.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dan. Hopefully we'll get to see a story from you next year.
We'll see. I hope so.
Excellent. All right. And then we have our last and final author who is on for tonight. Like I said, we do have 15, but people are busy and some are in London and Australia and they couldn't all make it. So we are moving on to Jen.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Yay. You know how techie I'm not.
You say that, but you do just fine.
Sometimes with a little bit of practice. I'm glad I've got you to give me practice.
That's right. That's what I'm here for. Man,
since you tacked me on to the end, I assume I've got probably like 5 minutes, which is perfect. I had like 2 major surgeries yesterday, like 30 hours ago. So it's medication time to go to bed. But I am
No, take the medication. We'll wait. Then I'm going to ask questions. Hold on. No, that's how we're going to make
all your questions. I've been paying attention. Okay, so.
Wait. No, you said you were paying attention. Let me read your bio. That's right.
I'm going to start with my own bio, and I'm going to spice it up a little.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Jen.
So I am a military wife. My husband's in the Air Force. We used to be both in the Army. And before that, I was a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force, so we were rebels joining the Army. We've been skydiving. We have been shark diving. We have been on a flying trapeze. We tried surfing. That did not work out. Let's see. We've lived in Korea. We've lived in Germany. We've lived in Guam. I've lived in the Philippines. We've been kind of all over. So life's an adventure. So have at it, right?
That's right. You're definitely living it, man. It's impressive.
If I'm on par here, next is what is your story about, right? Is that what we're on to?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. My story is about a young lady.
She doesn't need us, Leslie. We're
lost.
Good.
No, okay, good.
She has lost.
It's called Hall of Abandoned Things. Got to say the title first. Go ahead.
Hall of Abandoned Things. Okay, good. Yes, that's the title of my story. It's about a young lady that has lost a love of her life, and she is struggling with the pain. So she goes to this shop where she's heard that the shopkeeper's got some unique solutions to things. Only she can't find the shopkeeper. He has been kind of trapped by a genie. So she ends up stumbling into that same trap, and they have to get out of their abandoned location that they end up getting stuck in. My favorite part of that story is the last probably half page. It's got a really sweet ending. So I really enjoyed the ending. And I won't say what it is because I don't want to ruin anything. There's a lot of chat going on about zombies, and never ask me about zombies. I'm not an expert in that field. I'd be like throwing a dart at a wall.
Oh, no, it's just one question.
Well, I know, but I never get the favorite ice cream question. So I want to throw that in and ask it before I do the toy section. Okay, so my favorite ice cream is Rocky Road. If I can't find cookies and cream with the chocolate base instead of the vanilla or cream or whatever flavored base, HEB's got it. And I've not seen that before except here. So
is that the 2-step cookie one, Zafo?
I don't
know. No, it doesn't. No.
No, I can't remember what it's called, but
that one's got a vanilla base, I think. Huh.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a thing. And I'm like, oh, that might be my new favorite thing. Okay, my favorite toy I've had for like 30 years. I still have it. It is Leo. Leo is a 3-foot long laying down stuffed leopard. And
for the record, I got really afraid for a minute, was wondering what those drugs were doing. Okay, so keep going.
Okay, so he kept me safe as a kid so that Jaws wouldn't bust through my floor. I have 2 sisters that are older than me and they're mean. He would keep me safe from the monsters under the bed. He is now residing in my kids' bedroom. I'm a homeschooling mom of 4 boys, so they keep safe by Leo. Leo guards them. Okay, that was all I had. What do you got for me, girl?
I don't know. I think you covered it. I think you're good. No, I have to say, we talked earlier. I don't know how long you've been on, but we talked about the how awesome, because you have for this one and Misspelled that you went through and proofread the entire thing. Like I said, just so everyone knows, this is for charity, right? So we try to do everything as low cost as possible, so we can give more money to the charity. And so we send the art copy out to all the writers and ask them, hey, please look at your story. Please, if you want to look at the other ones, that would be great. Just let us know what you see. And Jen goes through with a fine-tooth comb and gives us everything. So it was pretty impressive. So I'm wondering, do you do it for the children, or do you do it because you just can't take it when those commas aren't right?
I do it because, I don't know, it's fun. I have the curse where if you read it, it just jumps out at you. It's not so much that I go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I just read it and it pops out. I'm like, oh, there's something easy to fix. So yeah, that's mostly why I do it. And also because who doesn't want a book better? You can always make a book better, right?
Always. So. Always. And I guarantee you we miss some anyways, right? But still, that fine-tooth comb makes all the difference. We like to put out that professional product, and it looks better because of you. So we appreciate it.
Awesome.
Don't we, Leslie?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You caught
I appreciate your comments, Leslie. On your feedback on my story. I could always use a good dev editor. That's not where I shine so much, but
well, it was really good. And I am going to confess here, because I just love Berneth and Lavella. Sorry.
I think.
Yes.
It's been a while.
Their interaction, and I confess there was a moment there I got misty-eyed, because I'm just, are you emotional when you write ever? Because sometimes it's like, are you?
So I kind of try and harness, I'm an emotional person, but I try to harness it while I'm writing, but I don't get emotional while I'm writing it, but then I'll go back and read it later. And yeah, I'll cry over my own stuff. And I'm like, okay, I guess that was all right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Totally weird. Yeah, I have to say, we're not supposed to choose our favorites, but when Leslie and I were debating, what we really liked and what we were, which stories we were going to go with, we both said yes to yours immediately. It was quick.
Aw.
So
that makes me feel good. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yours is a really, really quick yes. But that's awesome. So what we asked ice cream. We talked about the story. Do you have anything up and coming you're really excited about that you can talk about?
I do. Well, I don't know. Am I allowed to talk about it? I do. Okay, if you include the novels that are, the short stories that are coming out, I've got 9 short stories out total that are, last couple are going to be put out here shortly, including this one. And then I have my very first novel that's coming out that I don't think I can say much about, but I'm excited to have it coming out.
We can say also that we're very excited too. You'll learn more after the last book in the Misplaced Mercenary series.
I was going to say, I'm allowed to say it's coming out through you, right?
Yes.
That's all I'll say, but yes.
Yeah, we'll do formal intros later, but.
Kelly hasn't read the novel yet, but Kelly's going to love the novel.
And a lot of the reason we said, hey, can you write a novel for us was because of this story. So if you want to see what we're talking about, you should log on, or you should definitely get this. So let's put the link up one more time. It's for charity. Let's beat it. Like the 158, it was 158, right? $158 we were able to donate. We'd really like to double that next year. It would be awesome. So let's make it happen.
I have one question for you. What is the theme for next year's anthology?
Good question. Yes, that's what Leslie and I are going to talk about next. So the theme for next year's anthology is Resurrected. My gosh, I forgot the rest of the title.
Oh, an anthology of second chances.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. Do you see why she is priceless? Resurrected, an anthology of second chances. So that will be it for next year. So one last question for you then, Jen. Is it, do you find it easier or more challenging to write from a prompt instead of just having an idea and going with it?
I've only been writing for a few years. And when I started off, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can like magically come up with something for this prompt, but that's kind of what I've done the whole time. And so I've gotten much better at it. And so, yes, I do enjoy having prompts. Easier? I don't know. It's like it's a toss up. Both on my own or with a prompt are pretty equally. It either comes or it doesn't.
Yep. No, I feel that. I do the same thing, right? If I see it and I see a call out and I'm like, ooh, I could totally, I have an idea already. I must write this story. I like it. I like it. I like it. All right. You are wonderful, Jen. You go heal. So we need you nice and recovered. So you go heal. We are so, so honored that you were able to jump on. You are a vital part of this process. So thank you so much.
It was my pleasure.
All right. All right, Leslie. It's you and me, man.
Yes. Okay.
So we did the titles. That's awesome. So it's Resurrection. And for next year, same thing. It'll be book 5 in this series, Legion of Darks Presents. Quite frankly, I was going to stop at Abandoned. Like I said, this book would not have even happened without Leslie. So just so you know, so y'all know, please support us so we can, give money to the children for this. That's the whole reason we are doing it. But I'm so glad that you were with me for this, Leslie. We met like every week for a long time.
Yeah.
We so did. It was really cool. I much enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I hope you learned something.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Lots.
Good.
So much.
Well, I just want you to know I have ideas more for you in the future than just putting together the anthology. But this is kind of, like Jessica was saying, the program that she's in is the one that I graduated from, the publishing program at Western Colorado. And the putting together the anthology is part of that program. So you've already had that experience now. Do you see what I mean? So you've had like this huge experience for this that we do for that. But it's just, I have to say, sometimes you throw people into something and they just can't handle it, right? And you just, I don't know, it was just beautiful. I'm so glad I met you.
When you find something you really enjoy, even though it's a ton of work, you still enjoy it. And that's what editing, everything about it. I mean, even though the work is hard and sometimes you're up late and sometimes whatever, that does not matter. It's like, you learn so much and you meet so many amazing people, and the creativity that's out there, it just is, it is astonishing what people come up with, and then to see, you have your authors and you might see one story here and one story there, and then you'll come back around later and see them again and see the improvement that they've made. And because everybody says you have to keep practicing writing, but you can't just write. You also have to, learn from other writers and learn from editors and do your reading and do your, you have to be growing your knowledge base and putting those things into practice. And that's one of the things I really find fascinating too, is even as I read and study and do, whenever I read a book on the craft or on editing and stuff, and then I look at somebody's story and it's like, boom, it comes out and goes, oh, now I understand why this was bothering me because I have a name to put to it. So it's like constant. Every person I work with, every podcast, every story I edit, everything, I learn something every time, and it is addicting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, welcome to the club.
Thank you.
Friday had a good question for us. So she wants to know which story in the book had us thinking that is a great way to tell a story about that concept. So which one do we think did a unique Abandoned?
Oh gosh. Because they're all so different. It's hard to, they really are all very different. And each story kind of has its own hook, its own way of looking at things. We know Scott's story had those layers. Jen's story had those layers too. Some were funny and some were short and intense and some were, I don't know. That's a real hard one. I don't know if
it is.
Because
I like
they're all
a Silent Sphinx. because it was that the amusement park that was made around an old serpent statue that was a ride in the middle.
Oh, the Silver Serpent, yeah.
Or Silver Serpent, yeah.
Silver Serpent.
Sorry, I had the wrong ones. Yeah, Silent Sphinx was the other one. Silent Sphinx was the spacecraft.
Right. And with the thing in the thing that they found in the thing, right? So yes. So
that's not giving anything away.
Right. We can't do that, right? You have to buy the book in order to find out what happened. So, but yes, the Silver Serpent was and the approach to that one was different too.
Yep.
And I like that you have all the characters in this. You have such a range of protagonist ages, because in Dan's story, she's preteen, and in Scott's story, she's in her 80s, and then you have like a whole gamut in between. So that's another nice thing about that, is there's not just one generation represented.
And I have to say, usually when you do a theme, you kind of know what you're going to get. Like the first one, Laundered, with monster messes, it was mostly horror, right? With the Misspelled, it was mostly fantasy. With Abandoned, I was expecting mostly sci-fi. Now, we did get a good share of sci-fi, but this is well mixed. We have sci-fi and fantasy and horror and contemporary, and it's just it's so cool.
Yeah.
We've got LGBTQ represented in here. We've got it's really, really diverse. And we were lucky to get all these stories. So
yeah, there were that, and and you would rather have a whole lot to choose from, rather than just getting 15, right? So you can choose the ones that are really grab you and are intriguing to read. So it's
a lot of fun.
That was good. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, there are worse things we could do for charity. I mean, this is pretty nice. And what I really like about these anthologies, like all 4 of them, right? Like all of these, first of all, they're priced very reasonable because they're $10.99 for the paperback. And so for that, you get, for those people in your life, you're not quite sure what to get them. I mean, come on, man, you get them these anthologies, they're little short stories. And I love, like, you're reading, you're like, I don't really like that one. Big deal. There's the next one. Ooh, I really love that one. Right. So it's not like you're dedicating yourself to a 400-word book.
Right.
And then you just don't like it on page, 70. And now what are you going to do?
Right. And then you introduce yourself to a whole, you might read an author you'd never read before, and you're like, ooh, I really like that. I'm going to go get more of their stuff, So, I love an anthology.
And like you said, we have, it's not just the stories that are diverse, so are the authors. Like we have the Trip Down Memory Lane by Ellen Rickoff. I mean, she's still in high school. So we have her still in high school. It's her very first, sale, all the way to Scott, who, is running magazines, right? So, and then again, everyone in between. So we've got all these people. Some of them have multiple short stories out. Some of them have full series out. So exactly it. You reading it, you're like, I really like this voice. Right. So if you like that voice, you're probably going to like other things that they write.
Right. Yeah. So that was, it's just the whole thing. It's just, wow, just fascinating. Just love it.
Freddie said that's her favorite part of the anthologies.
Yep. Yeah. But I'm going to thank you again, Kelly, for the opportunity to do this with you. I mean, I tell you, I just loved it, and I've learned so much, and you're amazing. I'm going to say it, everybody. She's amazing. But you all know that already. So, but anyway, so thank you again. Yeah.
No, you're welcome. Hey, let's face it. We both took a chance, and it worked out. And this could have gone horribly wrong for either of us, and it
could. it could have. Yes, it could have.
And your name is on the front of a book now.
I know, and you keep making me do these things
and make sure it's there. That's right.
I am the shadow warrior. I shouldn't be in the front ever, but that's okay.
You're in the front. So, Leslie, you also do freelance editing. So why don't you go ahead and share with the audience where, if anyone needs a good editor, where it is they can request your services.
Oh, well, then probably my email, which is editingbyLRB@gmail.com. And I enjoy developmental editing. I find that I'm kind of going that direction because I really enjoy that whole story structure, and I'm focusing all of my studies and reading and stuff on that right now. But I also have done proofreading and some copy editing and beta reading. I'll beta read, so.
Excellent.
There you have it.
Hit up Leslie. She'll help take care of you.
Come to
see Matt vouched for you. Matt says that you are a good editor.
Oh, thank you, Matt.
And I mean, Dan's saying your praises, so obviously.
Well, he kind of has to, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does kind of have to. So it's nice other people. Jen also agrees that you're a great editor.
Okay.
So there
Well,
you
thank you. I appreciate that. I like the warm fuzzies too. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for sticking with us for this little bit longer than normal, 20 questions, but we had lots of authors to talk to. It was awesome. So, Zafo, if you'll put the link up there one more time. There it is. And please, anybody who has already had it or already read it, please make sure to leave a review. That just helps with visibility so we can get more people to help the kids. So let's make it happen. It'd be so cool to double that check, especially here. You want a funny thing. When the Two Dorks, when they do, because it's on Two Dorks TV on Twitch, this is that's the Legion of Dorks people who are doing the charity. They just did it not last Friday, the Friday before. They did their charity and they stream gaming all day long. And they also do a podcast. So they streamed their podcast, and that was Stephen and Ash, who are the Two Dorks. They were the beginning of all this, the foundational members. And they do a comedy show. And so they were recording their comedy show, playing their games and stuff. And they decided that they weren't getting enough donations because their goal was $2,000, but it was all day, right? And they weren't getting enough donations yet. This was in the morning. That they would do for every $5, they would each do one squat. Well, Zafo got on at that time and donated all $158 that we had. Do 16 squats from that, and everyone else was like, what? This is fun. So people kept logging. I mean, they ended up doing over 200 squats. All the money that got donated for Toys for Tots. And it's cool too, because you donate it and it goes straight. You don't give it to them and then they pay them, right? It goes straight to Toys for Tots. It's a link. It's the way that they have it set up, like the Toys for Tots does. You can click that link and it goes right to them. So it's really cool, and it was so much fun watching them do all those squats. They couldn't walk for 2 days, but it was funny. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. We have DC Gomez. So she is fantastic and hilarious, and you're going to love her. So we'll see you then.